The first communion that was had was actually a Passover Seder by Jesus. And on that night, he announced to his beloved 12 disciples, the 12 men that he had been taking around for 3 years, discipling, training, putting up with them, retraining, praying for them. He announced to them that one of them would betray him on that night. And on that night, what does he do when he's facing death, the crucifixion? Of course, he has a Seder. Paul puts it this way. The Lord Jesus, in 1 Corinthians 11, the Lord Jesus on that night he was betrayed, took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, "This is my body, which is for you." This is entirely new. This was not a typical Seder. "This is my body, which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me." In the same way, after supper, he took the cup, saying, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this whenever you drink it in remembrance of me. For wherever you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes." We want to link the context of the betrayal that night with the new covenant. In biblical times, when a young man would ask a woman for her hand in marriage, he'd go over to his house with his father, reinforcement, and he'd speak to the bride's father about a bride price. They would settle on something akin to a dowry. And then once that was settled, the business was done. Dad would pour wine that he brought from the house into a cup, give it to his son. His son would go over to the prospective bride, and he'd tell her, "I love you. I want to give you my life. I lay down my life for you. I give you this cup, which symbolizes my life. It's the blood. Drink it. Will you marry me?" And if she accepted the marriage proposal, she would drink it. That was the sign. And if she didn't, I guess he went home with his dad and they drank the bottle together in sorrow that night. But Jesus offered a very similar type of scenario of offering a cup. And he did with the 12 disciples. He offered the third cup of the Passover Seder, which is supposed to be the cup of salvation. But he changed it, and he said, "This is my body that I give for you, and this is the cup of my blood, a new covenant that I give for you." Jesus is in actuality asking us to marry him in a spiritual marriage. He's asking us to be his spiritual bride. What does the God of heaven and earth say to us in the times of intense evil? He says, "Marry me." He says, it doesn't matter about everything else. Everything else is going to fade away. You're not going to have any of this later on anyway. Look at me. Marry me. We will do it. So tonight, we are going to take communion together. So as you remember his body, as you remember his blood, what you are doing is you're saying, "Yes, Jesus, I accept your proposal. I will marry you. I will give you my life, and I'm all in for you."